RAV4 model 4432, Tacoma model 7540, 36 months, $29.99 due, 0 security, 10,000 annual miles, 15 cents per mile thereafter.
Broadcasting from the Technology Recycler Studios, this is Indy's Mobile News, 93 WIBC, WIBC HD1 Indianapolis. The news starts now.
July 4th deadline coming. President Trump is pushing his big, beautiful bill. I'm Ann Carrick, Fox News. The Senate reportedly planning to hold its first procedural vote today. It's been a struggle to find a passable solution. Senator Roger Marshall on Fox News Live.
We cannot blow this chance. This is the president's legacy, his agenda. If you supported President Trump, you should support this bill. This is going to be the largest tax decrease in American history. We're going to secure the border, a whole lot of other good things. But mostly, this is the beginning of America's great golden era.
Some concerned senators meeting with the president to discuss possible changes. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of limiting nationwide injunctions, clearing the way for President Trump to move forward with some policies. Fox's Madeline Rivera.
The High Court did not rule on the constitutionality of birthright citizenship, though, so its fate is unclear. Still, the decision is a major win for the administration, which has railed against federal judges. There have been more than 30 nationwide injunctions in President Trump's second term, and that is about as much as what former Presidents Obama, Bush, and Biden face in their terms combined.
These judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect or at least delay it for many years.
The court also sided with religious parents in Maryland, allowing opt-outs for their children from lessons involving LGBTQ books. The Justice Department fired at least 3 prosecutors who worked on Capitol riot cases, according to sources familiar with the matter. Those dismissed include 2 supervisors and a line attorney from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington. America is listening to Fox News.
From around the world,
Trey Yingst, joining us from Tel Aviv, Israel.
to Washington,
I'm Mike Emanuel.
to your own backyard. If a story impacts you or your wallet, we're on it. It's the Fox News Rundown. We give every story the deeper look it deserves with must-listen interviews and smart analysis from the voices you can trust. Start your day with the Fox News Rundown. Listen and follow now at foxnewsrundown.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey, this is Trey Gowdy, host of the Trey Gowdy Podcast. Every Tuesday, you'll hear what's on my mind. Plus, every Thursday, there's a special bonus episode where we answer the questions that are on your mind. Make sure to spend your Tuesdays and Thursdays with Trey. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts. Hope to see you.
America's listening to Fox News.
The ceasefire between Israel
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Ending a standoff in handcuffs. I'm Jarrett Lewis. Here's what's trending this hour. A shooting on the east side of Indianapolis sparked a wild chase that ended in a crash on the west side. Ryan Hedrick has the story.
It was about 8:45 on Saturday morning when cops got a call near 42nd and Midhofer. About 3 people shot. About 20 minutes later, a black pickup truck being driven by a guy with light skin and dreads crashed into a buy here, pay here car lot along 16th Street right on the corner of West Winfield. The car heavily damaged by the chase, surrounded by police and a drone. About an hour later, the guy's girlfriend and mother showed up, talked him out of the car, and the cops placed him in cuffs. A total of 2 people are in jail for that shooting on the east side, and police say that shooting led to this chase on the west side. Reporting from Indianapolis's west side, Ryan Hedrick, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
A 10-month-old is dead after the car they were in crashed and then caught on fire. The incident happening in LaPorte County. Deputies say they couldn't approach the vehicle due to intense flames. Once firefighters extinguished the fire, the child had not survived. The identity of the 10-month-old has not been disclosed. Big changes are coming to Indiana's Department of Child Services. They are launching the Awaken Project, which is to sharpen how officials serve families. Governor Mike Braun says they are cutting out some of that middle management to free up millions of dollars. That money will go straight to the front lines with foster care and family caseworkers, helping to keep children safe. Officials are even hiring more case managers. I'm Jarrett Lewis on The Level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
Tonight, in the lower 70s, partly cloudy skies, some areas of patchy fog. For Sunday, we'll have partly cloudy skies to start, turning mostly cloudy, spotty afternoon downpours, highs in the mid to upper 80s. On Wish TV, Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse for 93 WIBC.
America respects our first responders and veterans, the brave whose business is taking action when calamity strikes. It's dangerous work, often surrounded by sirens, shouting, even gunfire, so hearing loss is probable. First responders can turn to Relay Indiana. If you have trouble hearing on the telephone, visit RelayIndiana.com for voice recognition technology phones that allow the hearing impaired to have normal phone conversations. And there's loaned equipment for those who qualify. Get clarity back on the phone. Visit RelayIndiana.com.
My name is Jamie Bowles, and I was diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer in December of 2018. Nobody would even know looking at me that I have stage 4 lung cancer, and I'm grateful for biomarker testing for that. When I was sitting down with my oncologist, there was already state-of-the-art medication available that I was going to be put on right then and there. Ask your doctor how comprehensive biomarker testing before treatment may help you decide on the best treatment. Visit noonemissed.org to learn more.
A public service message from Longevity Foundation.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone. Done. By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment, and this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. Thrilled you're with us. A little bit of pop-up storms out there. I drove through what started as a beautiful day. Temperatures down a little bit, and then coming downtown, went through a fairly torrential, although brief, little storm. Got my freshly washed black car all nice and trashed out weather-wise. But hey, that's all right. Hope you're enjoying the day. Hope you got out, got to exercise your Second Amendment rights a little bit. And by the way, speaking of driving downtown today on the interstate, and this has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. This is just a Guy Relford personal rant. There is a law in Indiana. It's only been around for 3-4 years. There's a law in Indiana that says it is illegal for you to camp out in the left lane, which is, by the way, the passing lane. It is illegal for you to camp out in the left lane and not allow people that come up behind you to overtake you in the left lane. In other words, when someone comes up behind you and you're sitting in the left lane, and it doesn't matter if you're going the speed limit. It doesn't matter if you're going above the speed limit. And I have idiots on social media that say, oh, well, if you're speeding, that's your problem. I'm just going to sit there. If I'm doing the speed limit, I'm helping control the speed on the interstates. No. But the speed I drive on the interstates is between me and the state of Indiana. That's between me and local law enforcement. You have no role in that process. So your job, and there's a law in effect in Indiana, and it's not limited to if you're going below the speed limit. No. If you're in the left lane and someone comes up behind you to pass you, you must move out of the left lane, get your little butt out of the left lane. I don't care if you're scared to change lanes on the interstate. I don't care. I don't care if you're I don't care if you're pulling a trailer and you're worried about going between lanes with your trailer. That means nothing to me. My point is the law says, and basic courtesy and basic driving etiquette, and what you should have learned when you were 15 and a half in driver's ed is that you can't squat in the left lane. And you can now be fined. You can be ticketed. If you're just sitting in the left lane and you won't move out of it, then the police can pull you over. And I've seen people rant about this. I was just sitting in the left lane. And I was even going 5 miles above the speed limit. Why did I get a ticket? Because you broke the law that says get your ass out of the left lane. So, rant over. But I had several people. At one point, I literally hit this point of congestion trying to come downtown to do radio today, where I literally had to slow down to like 45 miles an hour on 465. And all of a sudden I got people whizzing around me on the right, and I'm going, why are we going 45 miles an hour? And I was looking at my navigation. There was no construction. There was no, and it was because somebody was doing about 50 in the left-hand lane on 465. And let me tell you, that's more unsafe than somebody going 75 on 465. Why? Because people have to then figure out some way to get around you, and there's going to be frustration involved, and you're causing people to pass in a way that the design of interstates is not designed for. That is, we're supposed to pass in the left lane. So, ran over. I've been wanting to say that on the radio for a long time. It has nothing to do with the format of the Gun Guy Show, but I think about it every time I'm on the interstate because there's always some knucklehead squatting in the left lane. So, enough with that rant. Interesting historical fact here coming up, and that is that a little less than 2 weeks from today, on July 11th, so 2 weeks from today, we'll have a show on July 12th. I'm also teaching gun law that same day, big day. But on July 11th is what? And I would be interested to hear from people who have been listening to the Gun Guy Show for the entire time. July 11th is the 10-year anniversary of the Gun Guy Show here on WIBC. And I'm a little bit proud of that. It doesn't seem like 10 years. But you know what I think about whenever I think about how long we've had the show here is, first of all, I hear about how surprised people were that WIBC allowed there to be a show, and it was their idea. And man, I give them so much credit for this. And when MS Communications, which owned WIBC and several other stations, was bought by Radio One. A lot of people were nervous about that here a couple of years ago. Radio One, I give them all the credit in the world because they allowed us to have a Second Amendment dedicated radio show here on WIBC, and that came as a surprise to a lot of people. It came as a surprise to a lot of people when I announced it. It came as a surprise to me. I was a guest on some other people's shows, and Chicks on the Right, oh man, I miss them. Used to be on 9 to 3. And great ladies, and I think a really fun listen. Back in the day, Amy Jo and Miriam are their real names, and I loved them both. And they had me on a few times talk about, legal issues or legislative issues or political issues affecting the Second Amendment. There'd be a shooting, a claim of self-defense. They had me on to talk about that. And I did interviews for the newsroom on pending cases, on self-defense issues primarily. And then one day, a former fraternity brother of mine who was mainly in sales but did a kind of a fill-in weekend show, offered me a chance to come in, and he had read a news article that the news did about, the Star, I should say, the Indy Star did about me, calling me Indiana's gun lawyer. And he called me up. He goes, what's this about you being the gun lawyer? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm a lawyer that handles Second Amendment issues. He goes, well, how would you like to come in and for an hour we'll have you just answer questions about gun-related legal issues. We'll call it Ask the Gun Lawyer. And I'm like, sure, sounds fun. And in the back of my mind, I was a little nervous that nobody was going to call for the entire hour. And, man, we came in, and John Kessler is his name, and now works with the Bob and Tom Show over in a competing station, but doing a great job over there. And we had Asked the Gun Lawyer, and people started calling, and the phone lines lit up. Kind of like when we do Ask the Gun Guy, when I fill in on Hammer and Nigel. And at the end of the first hour, we're supposed to go on to a different subject. I was supposed to get up and leave. And he goes, hey, man, we still got, the phone line's full. You want to stick around for another hour? And I go, sure. And so we stuck around, and I answered more questions. And did that a couple of times. And a little bit after that, David Wood, the program director here, sent me an email and said, hey, I want to get together and have coffee. And this is spring of 2015, and asked me if I wanted to come in and have my own show. And I've been doing it ever since. But whenever I think about the time I've been doing it, is a meeting. I always think about a meeting that I had with the sales group, the sales department here at WIBC. And these are the people that really are the lifeblood of any radio station. Certainly they are here, which they're the ones out selling advertising, which keeps the lights on, keeps the doors open, keeps us on the air. And so they're vital to the organization. And I was in there, and there were a few people that had been around for a while, but a lot of young people. And it's not a huge department. But I remember sitting in a room, and the purpose of the meeting was for me to tell these people about the Gun Guy Show and what it was going to involve, and they could ask questions, and they could get a good idea about how to go out and potentially sell advertising here that would keep me on the air. And I could tell, particularly among the young people in this room, they're kind of shaking their heads and giving me a bit of a funny look, or at least looking a bit cynical, or dubious might be a better word. And I remember one young guy, I don't think it had probably been out of college very long, and said, Guy, listen, you sound like you're enthused about this. You sound like it's an important topic to you. And I'm sure there are a few people out there that, might be interested, but I can't imagine that there's going to be enough interest in a show that's really just designed for gun nuts. I believe that was the term, which, by the way, if you listen to the Gun Guy Show, that's a term of endearment for me. I refer to myself as a gun nut, and so I took no offense. But he says, I can't really believe that there's going to be enough of an audience for a show that's really just for gun nuts to keep you on the air. And he goes, listen, I hope I'm wrong. And I remember this was the exact quote, and it sticks in my head all the time. And on July 11th, when we hit that 10-year anniversary with a show the next day, and I'd like to do something cool. I'm teaching a gun law class that day out at Indy Arms, which I'm sure I'll talk about here in a bit. But the quote this guy threw out there that always sticks in my head is he said, listen, I wish you success, and you never know. You might still be on the air and have a show even 5 years from now. Frankly, I'm not sure I see it happening. I'm not sure I know how to sell advertising for this show. And I sort of looked at him and smiled. And listen, it's not my full-time job. It's not how I make a living. I enjoy the hell out of it, and I plan to do it. God and WIBC and Radio 1 willing, I'll continue to do it for a very long time because I love it and I enjoy it, and I get a lot of positive feedback on it. But at the time, I went, you may be right. I go, it wasn't my idea. And there's a quote I've used often, which is I wasn't looking for this job when I found it. It kind of found me. But anyway, forgive the commentary about me. I always make fun of other radio shows where the content is 90% about the show itself or about the hosts. So I guess I'm a little bit guilty of that here in our first segment. And I hope I didn't bore you with that history. But anyway, coming up here in a couple of weeks, got the 10-year anniversary. I'm excited about it. We hope to do something special there the next day on the 12th here on the show. And in the meantime, give us a call, join the discussion. We're going to get into what's going on in Congress with the great, big, beautiful bill. Listen, there's bad news, but there's hope on the horizon. We'll talk about all of that. Talk about a Supreme Court ruling that on its face has nothing to do with the Second Amendment or with gun ownership in America on its face, but has significant repercussions going forward. And that's a Supreme Court decision that a lot of us who are conservatives are hailing, are pleased with, are very happy with this outcome. And I think from a legal perspective, speaking as a lawyer who does constitutional law, it's exactly the right ruling. But it's not necessarily good news from a purely selfish perspective in the short term, or perhaps in the long term on Second Amendment issues. What am I talking about? We'll get into all of that and take your calls here when we come back. 317-239-9393, 317-239-9393. Join the discussion. We'll be right back. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Hammer and Nigel.
Karine Jean-Pierre. Latest to put some tell-all book out there about the Biden White House and...
Oh, her horrible book. Karine Jean-Pierre and her horrible book. Ugh.
She's saying that she is leaving the Democrat Party now because of the way the party treated Joe Biden.
Hammer and Nigel, weekdays 3 till 7 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. As I just mentioned on the air, our next Essentials of Indiana gun law class is coming up on Saturday, July 12th. And it's going to be a fun day for me. We'll be, in one way or another, celebrating the 10-year anniversary here on the Gun Guy Show. It's from 9 to 2 at Indy Arms, 2550 East 55th Street. A lot of fives in there. 2550 East 55th Street. In Indianapolis. This is 4.5 to 5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner. A very detailed discussion of the law of self-defense, including the use of deadly force in self-defense. If you carry a gun, if you own a gun, if you just have that gun sitting on the nightstand, this is an important discussion, something you need to know. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. We'd love to see you there. It's Essentials of Indiana Gun Law at Indy Arms on July 12th. You can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
Farnsworth Metal Recycling. A familiar face in Indy.
Farnsworth Metal Recycling will pay you cash for your scrap metal. Ray's Demolition and Farnsworth Metal Recycling may seem familiar to you, and that's because they are. They're trusted local family-owned businesses going back 3 generations in Indy with their familiar orange logo and a name you know. But you may not know they'll pay you cash for your scrap metal. Cash is king. Your scrap aluminum, steel, copper, and brass will get you cash from Farnsworth Metal Recycling. Just drop it off or schedule a pickup, and you'll put cash in your pocket. Ray's Demolition and Farnsworth Metal Recycling. Local names you can trust with 2 locations.
Farnsworth Metal Recycling. A familiar face in Indy.
Get cash for your scrap. Get started at farnsworthmetals.com.
From marshmallow festivals to fireworks on the shore. No matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles. During Hubler's Freedom to Drive, shop any of our 13 locations and choose from Chevys, Fords, Toyotas, GMCs, Buicks, Nissans, Acuras, Mazdas, Hondas, and more. Over 2,000 vehicles. All makes, all models, certified vehicles, luxury vehicles, even the hard-to-find ones. Plus, every Hubler Q-certified vehicle is covered by a 128-point vehicle inspection and a free Carfax history report.
'Cause Hubler's got you covered.
No matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles during our Freedom to Drive. Visit drivehubler.com or any of our 13 locations.
Cover me!
Warranty on select models less than 9 years old.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated the best hearing aids of 2025 by Forbes Health, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, starting at just $98 a pair.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aid.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 1 million happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. We leave no warrior behind. Wounded Warrior Project is a non-profit organization created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war. Whether those scars are physical or mental, we're here to make sure that they heal. And whether it's helping those with post-traumatic stress disorder live a normal life again, or giving much-needed support to injured warriors in veterans' hospitals. Because no one deserves our help more than the men and women who risk their lives to keep us safe. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
We're all different. 1 in 5 of us live with a mental illness. Don't filter who you are. Talk to someone you trust. Learn more at bringchangetomind.org. Through their service, veterans have our backs. Now we should have theirs. Learn more at gotyoursix.org.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So, Supreme Court just ruled here last week, in fact, late last week, on a limited aspect of President Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship. And what Trump had said, basically, is he instructed the federal government to not accept any documents to establish citizenship for whatever purpose. And this could be for benefits, whatever it might be, that based citizenship on the fact that a child was born in the U.S. when the parents were here illegally. And that's a very superficial description, and it's more complicated than that. And there was immediately a challenge in several different courts around the country, federal district courts, which are the local courts, where there's something like 700 of them across the country. And there were immediately constitutional challenges, because the 14th Amendment says that if you're born in the United States and subject to the laws thereof, which is a big part of it, then you're considered a U.S. citizen. And the 14th Amendment, make no mistake, was passed in large degree to protect newly freed slaves in the South. And a lot was happening on the civil rights front right in that area, and the 14th Amendment post-Civil War was a big part of that. And the intent was to protect people's citizenship and not allow them to be disenfranchised and as non-citizens. And so Trump's obviously had an issue, and whether you agree with the underlying issue or not is a debate for another day, and not here on the Gun Guy Show, which is completely hypocritical of me, since I just took half a segment to rant on people driving in the left lane. So forgive the hypocrisy. But the ruling said, it didn't say that Trump's position on birthright citizenship, basically ignoring, and if it sounds critical, I don't mean it that way, but looking beyond whether you're simply born in the U.S. to establish citizenship, and looking at broader issues than that. And where parents are here illegally, not allowing citizenship to be based on where a child is born, I think is a fair description. The court did not come out and say, yes, it's consistent with the Fourth Amendment, it is therefore constitutional for Trump to have issued this executive order on birthright citizenship. Instead, what the court ruled was that this particular district court, and this is just one trial court, of which there are right around 700 across the country. For instance, right here in Indiana, we have two. We have the Northern District of Indiana. We have the Southern District of Indiana. We have two districts, but then there are multiple judges within each district. So we have more than a dozen federal district judges here in Indiana. And so when I say there's over 700, not necessarily courts, but judges. And if you don't like a federal ruling, a federal order, a federal statute, if you can find one judge out of that 700 from any of the 50 states who agrees with you, and then, and this is the important part, issues a national injunction, which is what one federal court judge did relative to Trump's order on birthright citizenship, enjoined the president from enforcing this policy or implementing this policy across the entire country. And so think about that. The duly elected President of the United States declares a policy, makes an order based on that policy, and just one judge from one court can actually override the duly elected President of the United States. And a lot of us have had a problem with that for some time. And so the Supreme Court ruled, no, one district court judge doesn't have essentially the jurisdiction or the nationwide jurisdiction to enter that national injunction. In other words, a district court judge and his or her authority tends to extend only to the boundary of the federal district where the court is located. And for instance, we have the Northern District and Southern District of Indiana, and the Southern District starts right about at Indianapolis, just north of Indianapolis, through the bottom of the state, and the Northern District is the rest of the state. So essentially what this means is, can a Southern District, can a judge, just one judge, again, there are multiple judges within the district, can that one judge issue an injunction as to enforcement of a particular federal law within basically half of the state of Indiana? Well, yes, but they cannot issue an injunction that prevents the enforcement of a law, or here in this case, an executive order, across the rest of the country. It's really kind of a jurisdictional issue. And it's a 6-3 decision. And I think it's exactly the right decision. And a lot of us have decried, President Trump has certainly been vocal about it, and while I certainly disagree with President Trump on occasion, I've agreed with him that 1 out of 700 some federal judges, to the extent that some litigant somewhere who doesn't like a policy of the president finds one judge who agrees, and suddenly they can set aside that policy. Now, that's what the appellate process is for. So that doesn't mean that sticks forever. Can you appeal that? Yes, you appeal that up to the Circuit Court of Appeals and then potentially take it to the Supreme Court. But in the meantime, that all takes a lot of time. Those appellate courts have to have briefs submitted and have to be considered, and often there's oral argument. In the meantime, one federal district court judge has stalled a policy of the duly elected president. So why am I talking about a ruling in the context of birthright citizenship on a show about the Second Amendment? Well, believe it or not, it's more germane than my rant about squatters in the left lane, which I'll get into when we come back, as well as take your calls. You want to comment on this issue or any other, including what's going on with the Hearing Protection Act and the SHORT Act, that is getting suppressors, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns out of the National Firearms Act, which until about yesterday anyway, was part of the great big beautiful bill that the Senate is considering. Or anything else you'd like to discuss, give us a call, 317-239-9393. Right now we're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Tony Katz.
I got an email from someone yesterday telling me that they like my midday show, but aside from my opening monologue and the popcorn moment, the morning show is nothing but a bag of hot wind and me, and I quote, playing grab ass with the traffic guy and the weather lady.
I was hoping that was true.
True story. Signed, David Wood, who is our program director. I was shocked.
Tony Katz, mornings 6 to 9 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Summer is here and it's time to think about cleaning your carpets, but don't even think about renting one of those DIY units at the grocery store. Hi, this is Denny Smith for Zero Res, and right now, get 3 rooms of carpet cleaning starting at just $129 and $75 off air duct cleaning. That's the perfect way to refresh your home. Vacuuming is not sufficient to maintain the cleanliness and lifespan of your carpet. And please don't do it yourself with DIY, dirt-attracting, carpet-soaking machines. With those machines, there's no possible way to extract all of that dirty water out of the carpet, and it'll probably leave a nice layer of mud under the carpet. At Zero Res, there's a reason they have 4,900 plus 5-star Google reviews. So just call Zero Res with their patented ZR water that cleans with no soaps, no residue, and no harsh chemicals. Just fresher carpets and cleaner air for your family. Call now, mention WIBC, get 3 rooms cleaned starting at just $129 plus $75 off the air duct cleaning. 317-388-5141 or ZeroResIndy.com.
The deals and specials are sizzling hot.
It's the Central Indiana Gun and Knife Show next Saturday and Sunday at the Stoutfield National Guard Armory on West Minnesota Street. The best dealers in the region, hundreds of tables, just $6 for adults, kids 12 and under free. Must be 18 or accompanied by an adult. Buy, sell, trade. Next Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Stoutfield National Guard Armory. For more info, visit CentralIndianaGunShows.com.
Children are placed in foster care through no fault of their own. Because of abuse or neglect, it's heartbreaking.
We were just left in a hotel.
Tay and his brothers were adopted with help from the Dave Thomas Foundation for Adoption. But more than 100,000 children in the U.S. are still waiting for a family.
Now that I'm adopted, I can focus on being a kid.
Learn how you can help at davethomasfoundation.org.
Aldinger Senate's expected to vote to begin debate on the big, beautiful bill this weekend. Kansas Senator Roger Marshall on Fox News Live.
We cannot blow this chance. This is the president's legacy, his agenda. If you supported President Trump, you should support this bill. This is going to be the largest tax decrease in American history. We're going to secure the border, a whole lot of other good things. But mostly, this is the beginning of America's great golden era.
Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is calling for a reading of the entire 940 pages of the bill. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts is warning elected officials words have consequences.
We have had, of course, serious threats of violence and murder of judges.
The Supreme Court finished its term Friday. America's listening to Fox News.
The deals at Andy Moore Ford continue. We're talking about that employee pricing. Employee pricing at Andy Moore Ford across a full lineup of your favorite trucks and SUVs. That's right. You pay what they pay at Andy Moore Ford. Get $17,000 off MSRP on new 2024 F-150s or buy a new Ford Super Duty truck for under $40,000. 175 different trucks to choose from. And if you're looking to sell or trade your current vehicle, the time has never been better. Every vehicle comes with $500 in Andy Moore cash and $2,500 more for your trade. Plus, drive with no payments all summer long. Talk to Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield. Find out how easy it is to get your new car, truck, SUV, or fleet vehicle at Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield. 2713 East Main Street in Plainfield or online at Andy Moore Ford. That's M-O-H-R. I love Andy. AndyMooreFord.com.
Lanny went to college and racked up huge debt.
A little bit over $100,000.
For a degree he couldn't use? Now what?
I had a friend that went to my computer career.
They even helped him get hired immediately after graduation.
One of the things I love about IT is that you can work from anywhere you want.
You could become an IT pro in just months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI with zero experience at mycomputercareer.edu.
It worked for me, and I know it can work for you.
This is one student's experience. Individual results vary.
Denny Smith here. The hot summer sales continue at Miss M's Home and Garden and Sundown Gardens. Happening now, save more when you buy more trees and shrubs. Now, when you buy 2, you save 10%. When you buy 4, you save 20%. And get this, when you buy 6 or more trees and or shrubs, you save 30%. Also, if you need a refresh in the porch planters, annuals are 30% off. Miss M's Home and Garden on State Road 135 south of Whiteland Road in Barkersville. Sundown Gardens, 186th Street, Spring Mill Road in Westfield.
The show about gun rights, gun safety, and responsible gun ownership. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. So like a lot of people, I agreed with the Supreme Court's opinion on birthright citizenship. Again, they didn't rule on whether Trump basically rejecting birthright citizenship as defined in the 14th Amendment, didn't rule on constitutionality, just said one district court judge doesn't have the authority, essentially doesn't have the jurisdiction to order a nationwide injunction. And I read this and I go, you know what? I think that's right. And if I'm going to be intellectually honest, I have to say I think that's right. I also think it's right in the context of other district court rulings that I was very much in favor of, and frankly, on a purely selfish basis, not as a matter of my interpretation of the law or as a matter of a legal opinion, dealing with Second Amendment rights. And again, on a purely selfish basis, I was glad to see these rulings, but I never thought they were correct. And what am I talking about? Well, we had some district court judges, and again, you're talking about one judge out of maybe 700 or so across the country, who came out and issued a ruling that we like the ruling. We like the effect of the ruling. But these rulings are going to be greatly impacted by the Supreme Court's opinion here this last week. Now, not maybe in the short term, for reasons I'll talk about. But what am I talking about? We had a lawsuit involving the legality of the ATF's final rule on pistol braces. And if you remember that, ATF came out, and even though they said that for 10 years, that if you put a pistol stabilizing brace, for 10 years they came out and said, and what is a pistol stabilizing brace? It's basically designed to go on a pistol, and often these are rifle caliber pistols, so an AK style or AR style pistol meaning it's got a barrel less than 16 inches, and it's not designed to be fired from the shoulder. That's what separates it from a rifle. And if it's got no shoulder stock, if it has no shoulder stock on it, and even though it's got a barrel less than 16 inches, it's a pistol that's legal. And a pistol stabilizer brace goes onto that pistol, and it's essentially designed to fit around your forearm to help you shoot that pistol one-handed, as pistols are designed to be fired. And the ATF said for 10 years of putting a pistol stabilizer brace on your pistol didn't make it a rifle. What's the significance of that? Well, this is relevant to the Short Act and the Great Big Beautiful Bill that we'll get into here later in the show. Significance is that if putting a pistol stabilizer brace on your pistol in fact makes it a rifle. Why? Because yes, you can use this brace rather than putting it around your forearm. You can put it against your shoulder and essentially use it as a shoulder stock. And a lot of people do exactly that. In fact, a lot of people saw putting a pistol stabilizer brace on their pistol as just a way around having to register their pistol as a short-barreled rifle. And the manufacturers in the industry saw that, and they saw a market opportunity. And strangely, pistol stabilizer braces started looking more and more and more like shoulder stocks because people just saw it as a workaround. And the ATF saw that, and they saw how popular these were and how many millions of them are being sold. And after 10 years of telling everyone, the industry, the manufacturers of these, gun owners, oh no, if you put your pistol stabilizer brace on your pistol, it doesn't make it an SBR. Here a couple of years ago, under the Biden administration, they came out and completely reversed that, did a complete 180, and said, no, for essentially all pistol stabilizer braces, you put one of those on a pistol, you're actually converting it into an SBR, a short-barreled rifle, and if you don't register that under the National Firearms Act, pay your $200 tax, I started to say fine, which is essentially what it is. You don't pay your $200 tax and register it as an SBR, then now you're looking at 10 years in federal prison for possessing an unregistered SBR. And a lot of people got very upset about that, as people should be upset about that, because it was ridiculous. The ATF can do a 180 on that and put you in a position where you were legal yesterday, and after the effect of this, you can essentially be a felon looking at 10 years in prison for owning exactly what the ATF had just told you for 10 years you could own. And there were lawsuits filed over that. And a judge in the Northern District of Texas came out, one judge out of the 700 or so, came out and said, you know what, the way the ATF passed this rule, reinterpreting the law on short-barreled rifles to say that putting a pistol stabilizer brace on your pistol now makes it an SBR. The way they passed that was inconsistent with what's called the Administrative Procedures Act, which is a federal law that basically defines how administrative agencies have to pass their rules, their regulations. And the specifics, I can go into this very quickly. The original proposed rule, if you remember this, if this was an important issue to you, the original proposed rule had this elaborate point system, where based on caliber and weight and barrel length and accessories and any number of other factors, you had to add up all these points. And if you were over a certain number of points, then yes, your pistol stabilizer brace made your erstwhile pistol a short-barreled rifle, and you had to register it. And I got to tell you, I do this for a living. I've been doing this for a living for a long time. And I read this proposed rule like 3 different times going, I'm not sure how to do the math on this ridiculous point system. It was ambiguous as it could possibly be. We were talking about challenging it just based on ambiguity. And then there was this commentary period where the public can comment on a proposed rule. And we commented out the wazoo as gun owners, as members of the industry. And the ATF ultimately issued a rule that looked nothing like the original proposed rule. And they scrapped this point system altogether and just basically said, yeah, well, for the most part, if you put a SBR, a pistol stabilizer brace on your pistol, you've made it an SBR. But, oh, by the way, we're going to have this grace period for some number of months in which you can register your SBR and we'll waive the $200 tax. You still have to register it. And by the way, there are legal issues associated with that as well I won't go into for the sake of brevity. And one judge in the Northern District of Texas came out and said, you know what, the final rule has to be logically based on the proposed rule. Otherwise, all the commentary that the ATF received isn't germane anymore. They just did a 180. Or at least they dramatically changed the context and content of the proposed rule. And the Administrative Procedures Act requires the final rule to be a logical extension, I believe is the term, of the proposed rule. And they said, no, the final rule is completely different. That violates the Administrative Procedures Act. Therefore, the rule is invalid across the board, nationally speaking. They invalidated the rule nationally, which is virtually identical to a nationwide injunction. We've also seen nationwide injunctions on other issues. When ATF came out and changed the rules on who's, quote unquote, engaged in the business of buying and selling firearms, where they can put you in federal prison for 5 years if you've bought and sold some number, and it's an undefined number. They won't give you a number. It's not in the regulations. It's nowhere to be found. But if you buy and sell a certain number of firearms, such that the ATF decides you're, quote unquote, engaged in the business of buying and selling firearms without a federal firearms license, the ATF can put you in jail for 5 years. And listen, I think about this all the time. I'll be out on social media, and there are certain pages on social media where they're kind of hidden, and some of them have this kind of silly code they use to exchange information, but there are guns being bought and sold. There are other sites that have classifieds. People are buying and selling guns on there. And when you see the same people, the same usernames, posting gun after gun after gun after gun after gun to sell, I start looking at that as an attorney who represents people in these cases, saying I'd be a little concerned if I was this individual. The ATF, who clearly keeps an eye on the internet, trust me, there are people at the ATF who have that as a job. They watch Gunbroker and Arms List and other national sites, and guess what? There's an ATF office right here in Indianapolis, and I'm sure they're looking at the local forums as well. And ATF came out with not a new law, because they can't pass laws. That's up to Congress. They came out with a reinterpretation, essentially, of what Congress says about being engaged in the business of buying, selling, firearms without a license. And say, you know what? Essentially, we're going to make it easier on ourselves to prosecute people for this. And they reinterpreted Congress's words in the statute on this point to such a degree that one judge came out and said, no, I don't think this is consistent with the original statute. I think this is not within ATF's authority, and issued a nationwide injunction against the ATF enforcing that rule. And I was pleased with that ruling, very happy about it. We saw a nationwide injunction on forced reset triggers. As someone who owns a version of forced reset trigger, what is known more colloquially as a super safety, but it's different technology that functions in the same way as a forced reset trigger. One of the reasons I'm willing to own that is because there's a nationwide injunction. And since then, Pam Bondi's, the Attorney General's Department of Justice has come out and announced a settlement with manufacturers of forced reset triggers, including Rare Breed, to come out and say, no, we don't think these create or make a semi-automatic firearm or machine gun such that they violate the law, and so they announced a settlement. But that was after a judge came out and issued a nationwide injunction, and we love that. So what's my point? My point is that we have to be intellectually honest on this issue, and where we hail a decision from SCOTUS, and this is going to be effective now in every district court across the country, where we love the fact that SCOTUS came out and said, no, one judge can't hold up the President of the United States, and issued a nationwide injunction because that's beyond their jurisdictional limits. As one judge in one federal district, we have to have an eye toward the future, and I'm less concerned about this with Trump in the White House and a Trump appointee running the ATF. But hey, what's good in the short term can not necessarily be good in the long term. And should we be concerned about this as gun owners? Concerned is perhaps the word. I think we need to be mindful of the fact that the whole litigation process to set aside, whether it's an ATF rule or otherwise, gun control on a national basis based on one judge's ruling in one court, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And that's not necessarily a positive thing for those of us either concerned with or fighting over our Second Amendment rights. I've gone way past the 3/4 hour. Let's take this break. I'll get to the phone lines here as soon as I can. Probably not this next segment because it's going to be short. So please be patient with me. Hang on the line. We will get to the phone lines. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
Look at how he just broke it further than it was already broken. Why would you think he's going to fix anything?
You have the chance.
You know who you need to listen to? Us. We're the ones who are right. We're the ones who will tell you how it is. We're the ones who always stand up and own it. You need to listen to us. Stop listening to these politicians. They are to blame.
Kendall and Casey. Weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Our next Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class coming up on July 12th. Register at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Beck Toyota has been sold to the Hubler Automotive Group, and this is your best chance to save before the grand opening of Hubler Toyota. Choose from Camrys, Corollas, Highlanders, Tundras, and more. Lease a new 2025 Toyota RAV4, just $349 per month, or a new Tacoma, $299 per month. So if you've been turned away due to the crowds, come back. This is your best chance to save before the grand opening of Hubler Toyota. Don't miss it on US 31 South in Indianapolis, across from Hubler Chevrolet. Visit HublerToyota.com. New RAV4s, $349 per month, or new Tacomas, $299 per month. All offers end June 30th. Select models, approved credit, plus tax tag title license, $199 dealer doc, RAV4 model 4432, Tacoma model 7540, 36 months, $29.99 due, 0 security, 10,000 annual miles, 15 cents per mile thereafter.
It's the first day of the first grade, and she found a new best friend. It's a laid-back Sunday afternoon, you wish would never end. The homemade taste of
one smart cookie when you try Bluebell Cookie Cake Ice Cream. A sweet cream ice cream loaded with chocolate chip cookie cake pieces and swirls of chocolate and vanilla icing. This cookie cake ice cream really takes the cake.
The good old days are being made right now. The good old days are being made right now.
Look for Bluebell ice cream at all Kroger and Payless supermarkets.
With everything going on, it may be hard to imagine one more thing to worry about. But clothes dryers cause thousands of house fires every year, and dirty ductwork in your home is filling the air you breathe with pollutants and allergens. Should you worry? Not if you contact Safe Dryer and Air Duct Solutions, a locally owned, veteran-operated business offering fast, reliable duct and dryer vent cleaning services, making your home safer and your air healthier. WIBC listeners save 10% off any service. One less thing to worry about. Go to safedads.net.
Only 2 months to go. Get ready for a day of golf, good times, and giving back at this year's golf outing, powered by Franciscan Health, Thursday, August 7th at the Legends Golf Club in Franklin. Grab your spot now at 1075thefan.com.
Your rights, your responsibilities, your guns. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. We've got a very short segment here, as I mentioned before the break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the fact that the Short Act, which is what? The Short Act would have taken short-barreled rifles and short-barreled shotguns completely out of the National Firearms Act in 1934. And that would be an incredibly positive thing in that it wouldn't require the registration and payment of the $200 tax on either one of those. Also would have taken suppressors out of the NFA. Hugely positive thing. Listen, I own several suppressors. I'm fairly addicted to shooting suppressed. Once you shoot suppressed quite a bit, you want to do more of it, whether on your rifles or your pistols or otherwise. I do not own a shotgun suppressor. That's a discussion for another day. They're certainly out there and available. But that has now been stripped out of the great big beautiful bill. How did that happen? What's the strategy going forward? I've talked to folks from the NRA about this. I've talked to people from the other gun rights organizations. There's more to be said on this, but right now we're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Breaking news for the people of Boomtown. With Xfinity Mobile, the Wi-Fi is booming, at home and on the go.
And an upgrade storm's on the way.
That's right. And with Xfinity Mobile Premium Unlimited, you can upgrade your phone when you want, up to 2 times a year.
Now, once customers catch wind of the guaranteed new device discount, it'll be the biggest upgrade storm in history.
Wow. Let's hear from our weatherman on the scene.
How's it looking out there, Rick?
Well, Bill, the Wi-Fi is still booming.
Now through September 30th, existing Xfinity Internet customers can get an unlimited line included for a year. Plus, ask how to get a free 5G phone. Learn more at xfinitymobile.com. Restrictions apply. Xfinity Internet required. Unlimited line offer requires Xfinity 300 megabit internet or above. Taxes, fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply. Reduced speeds after use of monthly data included with your data option. Data thresholds vary.
Farnsworth Metal Recycling, a familiar face in Indy.
Farnsworth Metal Recycling will pay you cash for your scrap metal. Ray's Demolition and Farnsworth Metal Recycling may seem familiar to you, and that's because they are. They're trusted local family-owned businesses going back 3 generations in Indy with their familiar orange logo and a name you know. But you may not know they'll pay you cash for your scrap metal. Cash is king. Your scrap aluminum, steel, copper, and brass will get you cash from Farnsworth Metal Recycling. Just drop it off or schedule a pickup, and you'll put cash in your pocket. Ray's Demolition and Farnsworth Metal Recycling. Local names you can trust with 2 locations.
Farnsworth Metal Recycling, a familiar face in Indy.
Get cash for your scrap. Get started at farnsworthmetals.com.
Road trip!
This summer at Tire Discounters, your tires are your passport to savings, because you're driving to Paris,
Texas!
Then it's off to Rome,
Georgia!
And you'll be kissing the Blarney Stone in Dublin,
Ohio!
Right now, save up to $494 when you buy 4 tires, and that includes a free alignment and oil change. Stop at Tire Discounters before you see the world.
Emmer and Nigel here, inviting you to join us as we kick off the weekend every Friday around 5:45 with Beer Sample Friday, brought to you by our friends at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Find the path to recovery that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
Broadcasting from the Technology Recycler Studios, this is Indy's Mobile News, 93 WIBC. WIBC HD1 Indianapolis. The news starts now.
Whole thing. I'm Daria Albinger, Fox News. The Senate votes soon to debate President Trump's big, beautiful bill. He wants it passed by Friday, July 4th. Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen on Fox News Live.
We've all had time to negotiate what we want on the bill. And at the end of the day, your idea may be a great idea, but you have to deliver 51 votes. 49 doesn't get you there. 51 is the key number to pass.
But Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says first, he wants the entire bill read. All 940 pages of it. That could take hours. Meanwhile, Elon Musk thinks the whole thing should be scrapped. The former Doge head posting on X that the latest version is, quote, utterly insane and destructive, focused on the past rather than on the future. The Supreme Court has given the president more power with just one ruling. The justices say lower courts cannot issue nationwide injunctions on federal issues. Here's Fox's Madeline Rivera.
Some of these policies that they're looking to pursue include ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee settlement, and ending birthright citizenship. Democrats say the Supreme Court's ruling undermines a crucial check on the president's use of executive authority. The president argues otherwise.
Well, this really brings back the Constitution. This is what it's all about. And this is really the opposite of that. I mean, the question is fine, but it's the opposite. The Constitution has been brought back.
The High Court, though, did not rule on whether birthright citizenship order, whether that is constitutional. That was what this case was initially about. Attorney General Pam Bondi did not give too many details about how that order will be implemented as it continues to be litigated.
The court also allowed parents to opt their children out of lessons involving LGBTQ books. America's listening to Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
I'm Janice Dean, Fox News senior meteorologist and host of the Janice Dean Podcast. Join me every Sunday as I focus on stories of hope and people who are truly rays of sunshine in their community and across the world. Be sure to subscribe to the Janice Dean Podcast at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to spread the sunshine.
America's listening to Fox News. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
This is Jason Chaffetz from the Jason in the House podcast. Join me every Monday to dive deeper into the latest political headlines and chat with remarkable guests to hear their take on American life, politics, and entertainment. And don't forget, there's always somebody doing something stupid somewhere.
Listen and follow now at foxnewspodcast.com
or wherever you download podcasts.
Must listen to podcasts from Fox News Audio.
President Trump and Iran Supreme Leader continue.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
A shooting, a police chase, then a standoff. I'm Jarrett Lewis. Here's what's trending this hour. Police arresting a man driving a black pickup through Indy's West Side Saturday morning. Ryan Hedrick has more.
This chase originated around 42nd and Midhofer, where earlier Saturday morning, police got a call about 3 people shot. The man driving this pickup truck led police on a chase that ended here on Indianapolis's west side around 16th and West Winfield. The car collided with multiple parked cars at a mom and pop buy here Pay Here car lot, damaging about 5 of those cars. It came to rest on a power line that came down on top of the truck. Police surrounded the car with long guns and a drone. They were able to get him out of the car only when his family showed up. He's in custody, and IMPD says the chase started from that shooting, and a total of 2 people are in custody for that shooting. Reporting from Indianapolis's west side, Ryan Hedrick, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
Police in Fort Wayne say they've made 2 arrests in connection to a double murder from Thursday. 37-year-old Quenisha Gaylor and 29-year-old Shan Lindell Ford Jr. were both taken into custody Friday. Officers say a fight had happened earlier in the day Thursday at a beauty parlor where Ford was a barber. Later then, a man and a woman were shot to death. Ford and Gaylor each face multiple preliminary charges, including murder. A mother in Indianapolis is facing charges relating to neglecting her son. Tanya Boyd was charged with neglect of a dependent resulting in serious bodily injury. Her son was reportedly found to be suffering from severe malnutrition. The Indiana Department of Child Services had an open case with the boy since 2021. I'm Jarrett Lewis on The Level, on the go, and on WIBC.com.
Tonight, in the lower 70s, partly cloudy skies, some areas of patchy fog. For Sunday, we'll have partly cloudy skies to start, turning mostly cloudy, spotty afternoon downpours, highs in the mid to upper 80s. On Wish TV, Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse for 93 WIBC.
Beck Toyota has been sold to the Hubler Automotive Group, and this is your best chance to save before the grand opening of Hubler Toyota. Choose from Camrys, Corollas, Highlanders, Tundras, and more. Lease a new 2025 Toyota RAV4, just $349 per month, or a new Tacoma, $299 per month. So if you've been turned away due to the crowds, come back. This is your best chance to save before the grand opening of Hubler Toyota. Don't miss it on US 31 South in Indianapolis, across from Hubler Chevrolet. Visit HublerToyota.com. New RAV4s, $349 per month, or new Tacomas, $299 per month. All offers end June 30th. Select models, approved credit, plus tax tag title license, $199 dealer doc, RAV4 model 4432, Tacoma model 7540, 36 months, $29.99 due, 0 security, 10,000 annual miles, 15 cents per mile thereafter.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment, and this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
Well, welcome back to hour number 2 of the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. By the way, a couple people have called in, decided they didn't want to stay on hold or didn't want to go onto the air. But give us a call. Join the discussion, 317-239-9393. So the great big beautiful bill, which has a lot in it, some good, some bad. And believe me, a lot of people are upset that they see it as, and there's some debate on this, but I think the general consensus is that it raises the deficit. It does have some tax cuts in it, which are huge, very positive. Also on the positive side, at least for those of us who value Second Amendment rights, it had taken the provisions of what were called the Short Act that was pending in the House, and incorporated it into the great big beautiful bill that actually got added in the Senate. And then also had provisions of the Hearing Protection Act that was also pending in Congress and got incorporated into the great big beautiful bill. And so what would these two things do? Well, they would take suppressors out of the National Firearms Act. As I mentioned before the break, currently, if you want to buy a suppressor, you can do that. You can do that legally. You just have to go into your gun store, and by the way, you can make a suppressor, totally legal. In that case, you have to register that. You have to get permission to build your suppressor. So you send specifications, designs, a unique serial number into the ATF, along with your $200 tax stamp. and go through the process, get your fingerprints, and go through that whole process, and eventually the ATF will approve you to go make your own suppressor. Or if you want to buy a suppressor, which is I've done, I've not made one. They're not real complex technology. They're a little simpler versions, actually, of an automobile muffler. But you want to buy one. You go into your gun store and say, yep, I want that suppressor right there. And they say, great, and they charge you the money for it. Or you order one from a manufacturer and have it shipped to your gun store. Then you go in and you fill out a federal form. In this case, it's a Form 4 to build an NFA item like a suppressor or short-barreled rifle, etc. To build one, it's a Form 1. To transfer one, for instance, from your gun store to you, it's an ATF Form 4. So you go into the gun store and they fill out their part of the Form 4 as the transferor, and you fill out your part of the Form 4 as the transferee. Submit your fingerprints, your picture, like a passport-style photo. You submit all that, and ATF ultimately determines, after a separate background check, whether you're eligible to purchase that NFA item. And by the way, the background check, as far as the criteria for purchasing or making an NFA item, is no different as far as the criteria than the background check you pass when you're trying to buy a gun. In other words, there's no higher level of scrutiny based on your record that's put on you. There's no different set of criteria that applies if you're trying to purchase or make an NFA item. But ultimately, you pass that background check. They've reviewed your fingerprints as part of that background check. They've got your picture on file. They approve that. Then the stamp then gets emailed if you submitted your ATF Form 4 electronically, or it gets sent back through the mail if you submitted your form by snail mail. And when it comes back, we call that stamp day. Then you get to go pick up your suppressor. But it's a $200 tax to do all of that. So the same process with a short-barreled rifle, short-barreled shotgun. You want to build a shotgun with a barrel less than 18 inches, you can do that. That's what I did. The Indiana, for years and years and years, criminalized so-called sawed-off shotguns with barrels less than 18 inches. Even though there was a NFA process for registering them after or in order to build one or transfer one, even though there was a total NFA process under federal law, Indiana said, we don't care about federal law. You can't own a sawed-off shotgun. In 2015, I want to say, in Indiana, we decriminalized short-barreled shotguns. And I've said before here on the air, like 1201 on January 1, when the decriminalization of short-barreled shotguns went into effect, I filed electronically my Form 1 to build a short-barreled shotgun. And what I do, I put a 13-inch barrel on a shotgun that had previously had an 18.5-inch barrel, and I built my short-barreled shotgun. But I did so after complying with the NFA process. So the Short Act and those provisions that are now in the Great Big, or at least until Friday, were in the Great Big Beautiful Bill, would have taken short-barreled shotguns, short-barreled rifles completely out of the NFA. So the registration process didn't apply. Now, it doesn't mean you could go buy one or possess one if you're a prohibited possessor. All the rules on firearms would still apply. And by the way, suppressors are defined as firearms under federal law. As goofy as that is, the general definition of a firearm under federal law, as well as the Indiana definition, they're very similar, is the basic point is that it's a weapon designed to expel a projectile by means of an explosion. Well, a suppressor in and of itself is not a weapon. It doesn't expel a projectile. A projectile passes through it when it's attached to a firearm, and it makes the report of the shot of that firearm, the firing of that gun, makes it less loud, but it doesn't expel a projectile by means of an explosion in and of itself. But under federal law, it says it's a weapon that expels a projectile by means of an explosion, the frame or receiver of any such weapon, and suppressors. So it just says, well, it actually says silencers or firearm mufflers, which was the technology in place due to the inventor of the suppressor back at the time that the NFA was passed, 1934. So they would still be considered under the provisions that were just stripped out of the Great Big Beautiful Bill. They'd still be considered firearms. So you'd have to still pass the background check. Same background check you go in when you buy a gun today, but that could be done through NICS, the FBI, the National Instant Criminal Background Check System. So you go in, you fill out the 4473 form, the form you currently fill out to buy guns in a gun store. They send that to NICS. NICS comes back and says approved. Boom, you walk out with it. Or now that the ATF has designated the Indiana license to carry handgun, as I've talked about a ton here recently on the show, now they've said if you have a license to carry handgun issued by the Indiana State Police and that license was issued within the previous 5 years, now you can use that in lieu of a NICS check. So if the Short Act was enacted or remained in the Great Big Beautiful Bill and was passed in that form, and the Hearing Protection Act provisions, taking suppressors as well out of the NFA, were in effect, and I posted on this. I said, I want to be the first kid on my block to go in and buy a suppressed SBR by simply paying my money and pulling out my license to carry handgun. So I got my new 5-year license, which by definition was issued within the previous 5 years. I pay my money. I show my license to carry handgun. I fill out the 4473, which is still required. That my gun store owner accepts my license to carry in lieu of a NICS check, which is up to the gun shop. And in 10 minutes, I walk out with my suppressed SBR, as opposed to the whole NFA process. That's what's at stake. That's what could have happened had the Hearing Protection Act, the Short Act, been allowed to stay in the Great Big Beautiful Bill. What happened? What's the strategy going forward? Again, I've talked to some other gun rights groups on this point, and I think there's an aligned strategy. We'll talk about that as well as go to the phone lines when we come back. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Hammer and Nigel.
Weatherman upset that Trump cutting some funding to the National Weather Service.
The war on science.
Yeah, tell me more about that science that told me I had to wear a mask made in China that didn't protect me from anything. Tell me about the science of 6 feet apart. Tell me about the science of being in a restaurant. You can sit down and eat with no mask, but you got to stand up and wear a mask. But if you go to Cannes, you got to stand back up and put it on again.
Hammer and Nigel, weekdays 3 till 7 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Our next Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class. This is 4.5 to 5 hours, the most important legal information on Indiana's gun laws. Next one's coming up here on July 12th, just a couple of weeks from now. We'd love to see you there. It's the most important legal information for the Indiana gun owner, including a detailed discussion of the law of self-defense, including the use of deadly force in self-defense. If you carry a gun, you own a gun, that's exactly what you need to know. You can sign up right online. It's tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
The deals at Andy Moore Ford continue. We're talking about that employee pricing. Employee pricing at Andy Moore Ford across a full lineup of your favorite trucks and SUVs. That's right. You pay what they pay at Andy Moore Ford. Get $17,000 off MSRP on new 2024 F-150s or buy a new Ford Super Duty truck for under $40,000. 175 different trucks to choose from. And if you're looking to sell or trade your current vehicle, the time has never been better. Every vehicle comes with $500 in Andy Moore cash and $2,500 more for your trade. Plus, drive with no payments all summer long. Talk to Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield. Find out how easy it is to get your new car, truck, SUV, or fleet vehicle at Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield. 2713 East Main Street in Plainfield or online at Andy Moore Ford. That's M-O-H-R.
I love Andy.
AndyMooreFord.com.
Career changers, including veterans and active duty service members.
Your transition starts here. Go from GI to IT in a matter of months. Become a certified cyber warrior with training at My Computer Career. Cybersecurity specialists are in high demand, offering IT pros great opportunities and a rewarding lifestyle while protecting our people, liberty, and treasured institutions from cyber threats. Deploy your career in IT today. Learn more at mycomputercareer.edu/CWP. SkillBridge and other VA benefits are available to those who qualify.
We put our lives on the line for our country. We braved the unknown. We did what we were told. And we lit up. Our cigarette packs were as valuable as the packs on our back. Maybe more. At one point, cigarettes were part of our daily ration. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. And boy, we were smoking 'em. Bumming a smoke was the norm. It was an escape from the reality of dirt, sweat, and forgetting how many days you were so far from home. Never had to worry so long as you had a light, and the smoking lamp was lit. If that was you then, get your lungs screened now. Surviving lung cancer starts with a scan. Learn more at screenyourlungs.org. And thank you for your service. This PSA was made possible by industry funding and guidance from lung cancer patient groups.
Are you prepared for an emergency or disaster? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. Don't find yourself saying,
when the storm rolls in, my time to find a pet-friendly evacuation center will have run out.
The scorching heat wave will leave me powerless to cool my insulin.
I'll face a hurricane without meds. Now that's a tough pill to swallow.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Get started at ready.gov/older adults. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
My house has a new glow. I love my windows. Universal Windows Direct.
Right now, get 50% off your windows. That's half off, plus no interest and no payments for 12 months and a free entry door with your window purchase. Restrictions apply. Call 317-659-7574. Like me, you'll be saying, I love my windows.
I love my windows. They've got that brand new home effect. Universal Windows Direct.
Indy Humane, committed to helping Central Indiana's pets in need since 1905. Find your new best friend today. IndyHumane.org.
No Kid Hungry is providing healthy meals and hope to hungry kids so they can build better futures. Learn more at helpnokidhungry.org.
He's a Second Amendment attorney. He's an NRA certified firearms instructor. He's the gun guy. Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. I tell you, a couple people have been waiting on the phone line, so let's go to the phones. And Casey is called in. Casey, welcome to the Gun Guy Show.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
I was just wondering, I mean, I agree, too, with the Supreme Court's ruling on the district judges. But since they've done that, and that was a Texas district judge that done that about the pistol braces, where we stand right now with that, with the pistol brace.
Well, you know, with this ATF, Casey, I don't think there's much to worry about. Listen, I've never been a fan of braces. I didn't like them. To me, it was kind of a workaround around stock, so I always just registered my SBRs as SBRs, and I own several SBRs. But with this ATF, I'm not really concerned about suddenly ATF going and arresting people who have braced pistols. In other words, pistol stabilizer braces attached on their pistols. I cannot imagine that this Department of Justice would prosecute those. I can't imagine that this ATF would want to arrest people. And even though it's arguable, in fact, I think very, very, very likely that this ruling by the Supreme Court sets aside that district judge's ruling that led ATF to stop enforcing the pistol brace rule even under Biden. It's very likely that if that were to be revisited, that nationwide ruling, and that was slightly different. I don't want to bore you with the legalese on this, but that was actually vacatur as opposed to a nationwide injunction, meaning the district court said, well, in our interpretation, this wasn't passed, this rule wasn't passed in accordance with the Administrative Procedures Act, and we are vacating the rule nationwide. We're vacating it at its source, which is the ATF, and so it can't be enforced. That's a little different than a nationwide injunction. It begs the same question, which is, can one district court judge vacate, in this point, in this context, a rule of an executive agency? And is that really fundamentally any different than a nationwide injunction? It has the same effect. But my point is, until the government would want to go back and revisit that, seek an additional judicial review of that, have that set aside, that is, that district judge's ruling on vacature, and get a different ruling, and then have the desire to want to go prosecute people. And again, I can't not believe this Department of Justice would have any interest whatsoever in doing that. So, I don't own a braced pistol, and I have no desire to. If you own one, anyone out there, do I think you're subject to being arrested now based on this discussion? No. Based on the Supreme Court's ruling? No. In the future, I think to the extent that the Department of Justice would want to go back and revisit what that district court judge, and by the way, it doesn't mean that judge was wrong. And if that case proceeded through the appellate system, and it may still be pending out there at some stage of the appeals, since I learned early on that the ATF was no longer enforcing the pistol brace rule, I kind of quit watching the appeals because I didn't think ATF much mattered. And keep in mind, Pam Bondi, as Attorney General, was ordered by President Trump to reevaluate. There's an executive order that said this, to reevaluate the government's position on all pending cases involving the Second Amendment and determine whether the government wanted to continue litigating those cases. And it was only a few weeks after that that Pam Bondi came out and announced a resolution of the litigation involving forced reset triggers with rare breed triggers, who I think a lot of people attribute as being, or credit with being the developers of forced reset triggers. What's that? It's just a trigger that upon firing forces a reset of the trigger. With no external manipulation of the trigger, it forces a reset. The trigger has to still be reset. So it takes a separate function of the trigger to be pulled again, not with any physical force. It tends to happen just by maintaining steady pressure on the trigger. But that's what separates it from a machine gun, where one, it just takes one manipulation of the trigger. You just pull it back. For a machine gun, it continues to fire. With a force reset trigger, you pull it, maintain pressure on it, and the trigger resets. But the trigger's going back and forth. You can see it. And so it takes a separate function of the trigger for each shot. That makes it a semi-automatic, not a machine gun. And by the way, the Supreme Court's opinion in the Cargill case that set aside the ATF's rule on bump stocks made it very clear the distinction between automatic and semi-automatic. And I think that's what forced, had they not wanted to anyway, and I think they probably did, but had the Department of Justice not wanted to concede on force reset triggers, I think Supreme Court's decision in Cargill would have required them to do so. So, Casey, I'm getting far afield of your question. But I think that the bottom line is that the government may have no interest in pursuing any of these rules. I would like to see them rescinded. I'd like to see them essentially repealed or overruled by Congress, which they can do through amendment of the statute. That's much less likely. And we'll get into the whole legislative process and 60-vote thresholds in the Senate and yada, yada here in just a bit. But I would like the ATF itself to rescind the rule on forced reset triggers, on pistol braces, on their reinterpretation of what it takes to be, quote unquote, engaged in the business. So you can be prosecuted for being engaged in the business of buying and selling firearms without a license. I would like the ATF to rescind those rules itself internally. Then we don't have to worry about the status of the litigation. And we don't have to worry about the status of any particular judge's rule, whether it's a nationwide injunction or vacature, quote unquote, vacating an ATF rule, because the ATF itself has rescinded it. And so I would like to see the ATF director and President Trump take the lead, and Pam Bondi being right out front to get these things rescinded so they're not on the books anymore, so we don't have to worry about them. And we, in particular, don't have to worry about a future administration. If we get and don't gag when I say this, it's going to be hard for me to say without gagging, we get a President Gavin Newsom who would want to enforce all those rules, then we got to worry about the question that Casey asked, not just for pistol braces, but in several other areas as well. Tell you what, we got some time. Let's go back to the phone lines, and Ryan has called. Ryan, welcome to the Gun Guy Show.
Hi, Guy. I was just wondering, I know you've answered this question before. I'm up here in White County. I have felony record because of drinking and driving, and some of those felonies were maybe like on a snowmobile. But I still have them. Now,
and I'm sorry, some of the
White
felonies
County,
were what? And I didn't hear what you said next. Some of the felonies were what?
like on a snowmobile, like a snowmobile. But I got pulled over on a snowmobile one time, and I operating under the influence or whatever that was. But and so I was an idiot in my 20s. I'm now 46 years old. I don't drink anymore. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I want to get my gun rights back for my son because he loves to shoot. But a lot of the attorneys, like small town attorneys, they're not always very honest. Can we go through you to get, there's 2 counties that I would have these things in.
Yeah, is everything in Indiana?
Yeah.
Sure. I've done, Ryan, I've done expungements from Hammond to Evansville and Richmond to Terre Haute. I mean, it doesn't matter what county it's in. If it's in Indiana, absolutely. You need 8 years for a felony expungement. You need 8 years with a clean criminal history. You need to have paid all your fines, fees, and court costs, which is very important. You need to have paid all your fines, fees, and court costs, and you can't have any pending criminal investigations against you. But you've got 8 years with a clean criminal history. You meet those other requirements. Yeah, let's go get those things expunged off your record. And by the way, any of the misdemeanors that led up to the felonies, whether OWIs or otherwise, we could go ahead and expunge those too, give you a totally clean criminal history based on what you're telling me. So yeah, just contact me through the website. It's relfordlaw.com. And we'll go clean that stuff up for you, get your gun rights back. You go shooting or hunting with your kids, and we'll make that happen for you. Make sense?
Okay, Guy, I want to say one more. Yeah, I want to say one more thing. I listen to you every weekend when I'm working in the field, and that's what I'm doing now. And I just really think that you are an asset. You're an asset to Indiana. You really are.
I appreciate that.
I'm not the guy that goes shoot pistols and stuff, but you are, and so is the rest of the WIBC personalities there. I'm a big fan of them. But thank you so much, and I hope they never take you off the
air. Ryan, thank you. Thank you for your kind words. By the way, I grimaced a little bit when I was looking at producer Jack, whether he had his finger on the dump button when you started off. I think you're an ass. I didn't know where that was going to go, Ryan. But I'm glad that turned into asset, and that means a lot to me. The comments like that, believe me, when I hear stuff like that, Ryan, it means the world to me. It's one of the reasons I want to continue to do this. I'm getting pretty old these days, but hey, we've had a lot of history with people being pretty damn old here at WYBC and doing radio for quite some time. And I don't plan to go anywhere anytime soon. If by the grace of God and the grace of Radio 1, I'm allowed to keep doing this. So thanks for your kind words. Tell you what, we're at the bottom of the hour. Let's take a break. Great callers. Appreciate your calls. Give us a call, 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. We're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Tony Katz.
I got an email from someone yesterday telling me that they like my midday show, but aside from my opening monologue and the popcorn moment, the morning show is nothing but a bag of hot wind and me, and I quote, playing grab ass with the traffic guy and the weather lady.
I was hoping that was true.
True story. Signed, David Wood, who is our program director. I was shocked.
Tony Katz, mornings 6 to 9 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Hammer and Nigel here for our guy, Mark Dietl. Mark Dietl is the only real estate expert that we trust on the Hammer and Nigel show. And it's because he's helping Hoosiers every day, like Kevin and Angela in Greenwood. The big home was too much, and it was time for Dad to move into a maintenance-free community. But they needed cash from the home to fund the change. They reached out to the Mark Dietl team, and they were helped immediately with the entire process from selling belongings to prepping the home for maximum value. The home went on the market and sold for $5,000 over the asking price in less than a week. That's what Mark Dietl does. He's the only real estate agent that can guarantee your home sold at a mutually agreed upon price or deadline, or he will buy it. No long-term contracts. You pick the move date. You can cancel at any time. Call Mark Dietl today, 317-755-4232, or go to markdietl.com.
JMV here. The hot summer sales continue at Miss M's Home and Garden and Sundown Gardens, happening now. Save more when you buy more trees and shrubs. Now when you buy 2, you save 10%, 4, 20%, and get this, you buy 6 or more trees and or shrubs, and you save 30%. Also, if you need a refresh in the porch planters, annuals are 30% off. Miss M's Home and Garden, State Road 135 south of Whiteland Road in Bargersville, Sundown Gardens 186 and Spring Mill Road in Westfield.
The doctor's office that accidentally mixed up your files has your social security number. The power company that mistakenly cut your service has your payment info. And the hotel that lost your reservation has your passport number. You need LifeLock because your personal info is in endless places that can expose you to identity thieves. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Save up to 40% with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Fox News, I'm Ann Carrick. U.S. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says Democrats will force a reading of the 940-page tax and spending legislation out loud in full on the Senate floor. The New York Democrat posting on X, the Senate will be there all night if that's how long it takes. The Senate looking to vote on the big, beautiful bill ahead of the July 4th deadline. Chief Justice John Roberts of the Supreme Court warning elected officials about rhetoric.
We have had, of course, serious threats of violence and murder of judges just simply for doing their work. So I think the political people on both sides of the aisle need to keep that in mind.
Roberts speaking at a Court of Appeals judicial conference. A recent court decision limits judges' abilities to use court orders with nationwide reach. America's listening to Fox News.
Have you heard about Galaxy Concrete Coatings and their transformation? Your neighbor Bruce did.
Well, the project I was wanting to accomplish was my driveway. I wanted to see if I could get something that looked halfway decent, that would last a while. We also had a side patio surface redone.
Garage, basements, patios, sidewalks, driveways, Galaxy will transform your surface in as little as one day.
The crew was very, very good, excellent. The end result was just super. It is non-slippable surface. I get this if you want to make sure you're not going to have any people slipping or sliding when it rains.
Commercial or residential, 4 times stronger than epoxy, and it comes with a lifetime warranty.
The end result was just super. It was very easy to keep this surface clean. I had tire tracks all over it, and I just took out my hose, sprayed it down, and it looks just like new again.
Click on GalaxyConcreteCoatings.com and remember to like us on Facebook. Galaxy Concrete Coatings. We are out of this world.
From marshmallow festivals to fireworks on the shore. No matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles. During Hubler's Freedom to Drive, shop any of our 13 locations and choose from Chevys, Fords, Toyotas, GMCs, Buicks, Nissans, Acuras, Mazdas, Hondas, and more. Over 2,000 vehicles. All makes, all models, certified vehicles, luxury vehicles, even the hard-to-find ones. Plus, every Hubler Q-certified vehicle is covered by a 128-point vehicle inspection and a free Carfax history report.
'Cause Hubler's got you covered.
No matter where you're headed this summer, Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles during our Freedom to Drive. Visit drivehubler.com or any of our 13 locations.
Cover me!
Warranty on select models less than 9 years old.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIPC.
Well, welcome back. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. By the way, I just got a question. I got a message on Twitter or X. Well, if you don't follow me on there, I would greatly appreciate a follow on X or Twitter. I'm a little short of 10,000 followers on X, and I've been more active on there, and I'd like to hit that threshold. There are people here, there are other hosts that have a lot more than that, but I have follower envy, I'll put it that way, on X. So yeah, hit X and give me a follow. But I had a direct message that asked me an unrelated question to what we're talking about here tonight, but it's kind of interesting discussion. Very briefly, I'll get back to talking about the Short Act and the Hearing Protection Act and the great big beautiful bill. But somebody just asked me, Guy, I've heard you on the radio for a long time. I don't think I've ever heard you say, what is your EDC? And good question. EDC, if you haven't heard that term, everyday carry. And listen, you can have an EDC knife, you can have an EDC flashlight, you can have an EDC tourniquet, EDC medical kit, or whatever it might be. But typically people say, what's your EDC? They're talking about your carry gun that you carry the most often. A lot of people rotate, several different guns. I really have two. And depending on how I'm dressed, it's one of the two, and they're very closely related guns. My typical EDC, my everyday carry gun, 90% of the time probably these days, is a 6-hour X Macro, and what some people call an X Macro comp, because it's got a compensated slide on it, meaning it allows gases to escape in an upward direction, which is designed to make it a little flatter shooter, meaning your follow-up shots are a little faster. But it's got a 17 round capacity in the mag, plus one in the chamber. So you're carrying around 18 rounds in a gun that's very concealable, very comfortable. It's very flat shooter. It's got a trigger in it that I like. I hear people complain about the trigger. I've got a light on it. I've got a Streamlight TLR7 HLX, I believe, HLX, and I've got a red dot sight on it. I was a late adopter to red dot sights, but I've got a Holosun EPS carry. It's called an MRS, multiple reticle system, in green. It's got a 32 mil circle with a little 2 mil dot in the middle of it. I've been practicing with it a lot. I've gotten pretty fast with it. And then when I'm dressed like in gym shorts or sweats or something where I want something a little smaller, I actually have the original version of the SIG 365 rather than the X Macro meaning higher capacity, the original 365, which came with 10-round capacity. I carry it with 12-round mags in it, and I've got another little Holosun EPS carry red dot on it. And it's not the MRS version, but anyway, those are my two guns. Occasionally, if I'm teaching a class, I don't care about concealing, or sometimes, everybody's got to have what they call a barbecue gun, right? My friend Ken Campbell, who's CEO of Gunsight, he and I always laugh and go back and forth on social media about our barbecue guns. But I will often carry, in fact, just for fun sometimes, because I'm a big fan of this gun, I have a Wilson Combat EDC X9, and it's a really beautiful gun, but an amazing gun, amazing trigger, a double stack 9mm 1911 style gun, what a lot of people call a 2011. That's sort of my barbecue gun, meaning it's one you wear to open carry and show off at barbecues. That's where the term comes from. And so occasionally, just on a rare occasion, carry that one as well. Now I have a lot of other guns, and I teach classes using a lot of other guns. But that to answer your question. So let's get back to the point that we were last addressing when we took a break, which is where are we? Well, the Hearing Protection Act, and by the way, why does this matter? And why am I such a fan of suppressors? You know, people that oppose deregulating suppressors or taking them out of the NFA say, oh, well, they're designed for assassins to murder as many people as possible. And in fact, we saw, I think it was Chris Murphy came out, and I was ridiculing him on social media. He came out and said, oh, can you imagine a mass shooter with a suppressor? No one can hear the gunshots, so imagine how many more school children or innocent people in a mall or grocery store or Walmart or wherever it might be are going to die because nobody can hear the gunshots. Well, that's not how suppressors work. And I've talked about this before. They just minimized the sound about 30 decibels from about, depending on, again, barrel length, caliber, a number of other things, from about 160 decibels down to about 130. That's still pretty loud. That's the sound of a chainsaw running. You think people can hear that inside a school? Or of course they can. But for some guns, it makes them hearing safe. And then on suppressors, or on short-barreled rifles or short-barreled shotguns. Oh, well, you know, mafia members want to walk around with rifles and shotguns under their overcoats and bring them out and murder unsuspecting innocent people. That's not really why anybody cares. By the way, if your intent is murder, are you going to care about whatever penalty you're going to get for carrying an unregistered short-barreled rifle? Is that really your point? Is that really your concern? Are you gonna refrain from hacking the barrel off on your AR below 16 inches? If your intent is a mass murder where you're going to die in a shootout with police or eat a bullet from your own gun, are you going to care about the federal penalty for having an unregistered short-barreled rifle? Well, of course not. So it's not like mass murderers are going to care about whatever the law is on short-barreled rifles. So why do the rest of us, why do law-abiding gun owners care about these things? To me, a short-barreled rifle and suppressor goes together. Why? Well, let's say I have a 16-inch barrel on my AR, and I have full-length ARs. Then I want to put a suppressor on it. Well, most of the suppressors I have, rifle caliber suppressors, are 7.5, 8 inches, in that area. You can get them a little shorter than that. I have one that's designed to be modular. You can make it in short or long configuration, but most are 7.5 inches or so. You take a 16-inch AR barrel and add another 7.5, 8 inches to it. Now you've got a pretty unwieldy gun in terms of swinging it around, about getting in and out of vehicles, about going up and down stairwells, going in and out of doorways, going around corners. Getting out of a vehicle is a big darn deal. Have you trained in that? I have. Being in a vehicle with a rifle or a shotgun. And so a short-barreled rifle or short-barreled shotgun, it makes it much more manageable to maneuver and to handle a rifle or a shotgun. And then if you want to add a suppressor to that, and by the way, a short-barreled rifle, I have a 7.5-inch barrel on one AR. And yes, I know you're losing a lot of ballistic performance. Yes, I know the performance of 223 and 5.56 ammo and out of really short barrels. I understand they were designed for longer barrels. That's still what I built. And with the right ammunition, I've got those issues covered. But they can be a little uncomfortable and incredibly loud to shoot out of that very short barrel, especially in 5.56. So a suppressor just naturally goes along with that, and then the added length of the suppressor isn't nearly as unwieldy and unmanageable as if you put it on a full-length rifle. And so they tend to go together. A lot of people build SBRs with the intent to suppress them. A lot of people buy suppressors with the intent to put them on their SBRs. A lot of hunters love suppressors. Why? Because they can be out in their hunting area and not have to wear hearing protection. Again, depending on caliber and rifle and barrel length and other issues, so they can, hear the game around them. They have a suppressor so they're a better neighbor to people hunting on adjoining property. So there are a lot of benefits. That's the plus side. I've not heard an argument against deregulating these that makes any damn sense. It's just a bunch of scare tactics and a bunch of illogical arguments thrown around that have no basis in fact. So they've been stripped out. How did they get stripped out? The parliamentarian of the Senate, a lady named Elizabeth McDonough, she's the parliamentarian, meaning she's the one responsible for enforcing Senate rules. There is a Senate rule called the Byrd Rule that for a reconciliation bill, which is what the big, beautiful bill is, it's supposed to be about budget matters only. Why? Because it only takes a simple majority in the Senate to pass a reconciliation bill. It's one of the reasons we're enthused about getting the deregulation of suppressors and short-barreled rifles and shotguns passed this way, because we don't have to get past 60 votes in the Senate. Why did it make sense to have it in a reconciliation bill where we're trying to pull a fast one there? No, because the NFA was passed as part of the Internal Revenue Code. It's not even in the criminal statutes of the United States. It's in the Internal Revenue Code. Because in 1934, Congress still feared the Second Amendment. And they said, man, we can't ban these things. I know, we'll just tax them. And we'll require the tax and the registration. And if you fail to pay the tax and the register, then we'll put you in prison, not for owning them, for failing to pay the tax. So it's part of the Internal Revenue Code. So if we're going to give up the tax that's currently in the Internal Revenue Code, why wouldn't that fit in a reconciliation bill? The parliamentarian, the lady responsible for enforcing Senate rules, including the Byrd Rule, they call it, saying that, yes, it can't be an ancillary matter. It has to be truly related to taxation and revenue and spending in order to be in a reconciliation bill. It said, no, the NFA provisions we just talked about don't meet that test, had to be taken out. So they've been stripped out. Does that mean it's over? Does that mean we're done? Not at all. And there's a backup strategy, which I'll go into in a very brief segment when we come back. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Hammer and Nigel.
Big, beautiful bill. It's big. It's a bill. We're going to grow this economy. We're going to spend some money. But you got to spend money to make money.
Does anybody trust the government, Republicans or Democrats, to get it right and do that? But if this were Democrats pushing through another $5 trillion, we'd say, what the hell are you doing? If you don't stop the spending, we're going to run out of money.
Hammer and Nigel, weekdays 3 till 7 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Next, Essentials of Indiana Gun Law. This is 4.5 to 5 hours of the most important legal information you need. Coming up July 12th at Indy Arms on the Northeast Side. Register at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone.
Done.
By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hey, it's Big Joe for your trusted local independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer, Kirby Heating and Air Conditioning. Owner Robert Kirby reminds us why maintenance is so important.
Driving your car every day, it's kind of easy to remember to maintain your car, but you're not really always interacting with your heating and air system. So that's why the maintenance agreement is so important, that we come out and check that equipment, maintain it, clean it, make sure it's running its optimal efficiency, also to keep the warranty up.
Schedule today at KirbyHeating.com. Kirby Heating and Air Conditioning is your trusted local independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Tony Katz here for Premier Arms in Brownsburg. This is your premier gun store. Premier Arms has the experience and know-how to help the new gun buyer and the most experienced marksman. They've been in business for over 20 years and have a friendly, knowledgeable staff that wants to help you, not talk down to you. Premier Arms in Brownsburg is family-friendly, so bring the kids. All ages are welcome. Everyone can find what they're looking for at Premier Arms in Brownsburg, 3754 South Green Street. Online at premierarms.com. Tell them Tony Katz sent you, premierarms.com.
Downtown Indy's Fourth Fest, presented by UA Local 440 on the Indiana War Memorial Grounds, kicks off with a street party featuring live music, a kids zone, great local food, and more, 6 to 10 p.m. Then fireworks with an amazing grand finale, thanks to the Indiana Fever and WNBA All-Star Committee.
The street party is brought to you by Indiana Donor Network and Donate Life Indiana. One organ and tissue donor can save 8 lives and heal 75 more. Sign up at donatelifeindiana.org and talk to your family about your decision.
For more info, go to downtownindy.org.
Trump country is booming. We're building, hiring, and winning in Indiana because energy tax credits put America first, bringing manufacturing jobs home and creating a stronger middle class.
Jobs and factories will come roaring back into our country. More production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers.
And America's comeback depends on American energy. Senator Young, keep what works. Don't repeal energy tax credits. Paid for by Built for America.
I've always gotten tons of UTIs. Cranberry products never worked for me, and I was desperate for a way to be proactive. I'm Jenna Ryan, CEO and founder of Eucora. We've worked with doctors to develop effective urinary tract health products. Eucora is helping over 100,000 women stay healthy. Ready to join them? Get 30% off at eucora.com/radio. That's UQORA.com/radio.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Think of it as WIBC on 2x speed. Big opinions, great moments, and just enough chaos. The WIBC Mashup Podcast brings it all together in one fast, fun listen. New episode each weekday. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. So, Elizabeth McDonough, Senate parliamentarian, not a senator, a person who's appointed into that position. She's been around, I think, 12 years or so. By the way, same person that said Obamacare couldn't be repealed with a mere majority. And several other significant rulings in the past. But she's the one that said, no, Hearing Protection Act, short act, don't meet the requirements. They're too substantive. They're not budget related sufficiently. And they got to come out. Does that mean it's over? Well, no. And a lot of people are saying the majority leader needs to reject this. Well, the vice president is president of the Senate. As leader of the Senate, yes, can overrule this. A lot of people, however, are worried about the precedent that sets. Keep in mind when the Democrats in the Senate decided to bypass the 60-vote requirement that there used to be for federal judges. That's exactly what the Trump administration, Trump 1, relied upon to invoke the so-called nuclear option to say Supreme Court justices could be confirmed with a mere majority in the Senate. That directly led to 3 Supreme Court justice confirmations of justices that were nominated by President Trump. You're talking about Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett. Look at the Pro-2A rulings we've had and look who voted for those and consider the alternative. So a lot of people are concerned about precedent. Do we really want to do that? Yes, the majority leader can also, any senator can actually come up with 60 votes on the floor of the Senate to override the parliamentarian. Hell, if we have 60 votes in the Senate, we don't have to worry about reconciliation. We could just pass the short bill and the Hearing Protection Act, the short act and the Hearing Protection Act. So that doesn't really fit. So what's the strategy? I've seen from some Pro-2A senators, including the ones really pushing this, to say they're going to go back and say, all right, we're not taking suppressors, short-barreled rifles and shotguns completely out of the NFA. We're just going to take away the tax. And if you're only eliminating a tax, how is that not tax and budget related? That ought to pass. That's the strategy. I'll report back on that next week. That's it for this week. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
The deals at Andy Moore Ford continue. We're talking about that employee pricing. Employee pricing at Andy Moore Ford across a full lineup of your favorite